Okay, so we're at the halfway point of Star Trek Picard, and man, what an episode. I'm going to do the usual non-spoiler stuff first. First of all, thanks for taking the time to choose to watch this video. I really appreciate it, and if you do leave a like and subscribe to the channel, I'd appreciate that as well. So yeah, I wasn't really sure where they were going to go now the Titan was free of the nebula. But to get this out the way, this might be my favourite episode of Star Trek Picard so far. I'm not just talking season 3, I'm talking all of Star Trek Picard. So we get a few revelations that some had guessed when it comes to the changelings this week. After their absence last week, Worf and Raffi are back, and yes, I've got some thoughts, but I'll get to that later on in the video. And the whole changeling mystery sort of expands here. We get some great character moments as well in this episode, and Shaw is on form as always, and a very, very unexpected face shows back up that some fans love and a few of them might not like so much. It's a character that I know a few people aren't that fond of, but one that I always liked. And we get some real insights and perspectives and motives here that we might not normally get when it comes to Star Trek and how people see Picard as a captain. Now, while it was a great episode, some bits didn't work, but a lot did. It is still mostly based on the Titan, but everyone gets something to do here, and the change of pace after 2 weeks of the nebula stuff is pretty refreshing as well. As I said, there's a big reveal in this episode that some people guessed online, but this episode is also letting us know that there's more to come because they pull a surprise out their hat. If you haven't seen it, this is your last chance to avoid spoilers, so let's get to it. And a pretty interesting opening scene, and I love that you had the little bridge sounds before you actually got any picture. So they're out the nebula and life is fine, and we see 3 crew members on the Titan bridge talking to each other, and I think this is more character development than the Discovery crew has got in the last 4 seasons. But while they're being all pally, they're attacked by Jack, who's wearing a red Starfleet uniform, but it's all a fantasy / vision. So I don't know, maybe Jack looked into that Jat Vash AI light from season 1. I doubt it, they're probably not going to bring it back. And he's not only got visions, he's got red glowing eyes now as well. And we hear, I think it's Vadic's voice, but we also hear a few other female voices sort of beckoning him, and I'm sure that one is Beverly as well, so I guess this is all part of the hallucination. But anyway, back on the real bridge, because that whole thing was a fantasy. Riker says they're at the edge of the Alpha Quadrant, but not specific exactly, so they could be near Cardassia. I made a video a couple of days ago saying I think they probably are going to visit Cardassia or Deep Space Nine. If you haven't checked it out, there'll be a link at the end of this one. And one of my gripes in my last video was that Starfleet should have developed better technology to detect changelings after all these years. And 709 says that they've done exactly that, but the new shapeshifters have found a way around it. And Riker reminds us all that him and Picard are going to have to face the music. Well, actually, Picard says that, literally, and Riker gives command back to Shaw, who, by the way, has already contacted Starfleet because of course Shaw has. It's never a dull moment with this guy every week. He's an absolute highlight of the show. But Starfleet are going to the Titan rather than the Titan going to Starfleet, so yeah, it does make me think that the crew are going to go a bit more further afield than we think. So let's just bring up a talking point that a few fans have mentioned online. So last week when Seven killed the changeling on board, it didn't go back to its liquid form or dust, so Beverly wants to examine its body. And yeah, there's a lot of contemplation and investigation in these opening scenes, but everyone is basically in the shit here. And then Picard decides to have a little chat with Jack and asks him if he's ever thought about joining Starfleet. Now, I'll get into this in a minute, but in episode 2, Picard listed all the stuff that Jack had done, so Starfleet wouldn't exactly want to recruit him. And Starfleet's re-recruitment policy does get mentioned quite extensively in this episode, but yeah, maybe Starfleet recruitment needs to change its policies, that's all I'm saying. And speaking of Starfleet, they show up with a sexy new ship, the Intrepid, and they're sending security over in a shuttle, not a transporter. Now, when they first said this, I thought it can only mean one thing. Who's the one Next Generation crew member that doesn't like the transporter? It's Reg Barclay. And I thought, oh my god, they're going to bring Barclay back, because of course that would make sense if he's using the shuttle and not a transporter. But it's not, it's someone else. And just remember, They didn't give a reason why they didn't use the transporter instead of the shuttle, but I'll get back to that in a second. While they're in the turbo lift going to meet this mysterious shuttle, Shaw listing off all the times the TNG crew fucked up was pretty great, and again he does it the way that only Shaw can do it. And yeah, my hopes were dashed. It wasn't Barclay that was on board, it was Laren, and I never imagined that we'd see her back, or that they'd even consider bringing her back. But the way that they bring her into this episode and the things that they develop here, or they go back to and revisit, I suppose, are solid. But the whole time you're always thinking she's definitely a changeling, because I mean, how did she get back into Starfleet after betraying them? And Picard remembers how she left him in the Next Generation, and he is pissed off, and I completely agree. This is a great conflict. It's the person who betrayed Picard is now accusing him of treason for stealing the Titan. And Rose starts doing lots of weird things, like she's swapping the crew between the Titan and the Intrepid, and the way that she acts, the facts that she wants to get them alone to interview them, and she's very focused on Jack, and all this is very tense. But she cuts herself to show blood, and Picard notices that her earring is missing, so there is the whole is she, isn't she a changeling thing, and it runs for quite a while here. But while Starfleet's looking for Jack, Jack's looking to avoid Starfleet, so much so that he's having fantasies about killing them, and it's visions on visions on visions this week for Jack. And Picard decides for Jack to blend in, he may as well wear a red Starfleet uniform, so, you know, the one from the start, and you kinda know where this is going. Although they were absent last week, Worf and Raffi are back. And we open up with them on their ship again, and instead of investigating, they're attacking and practicing fighting on each other, because no doubt this is going to pay off later in the episode. And we get instantly reminded of the changes in Worf, and he's being all Obi-Wan this week, or Yoda, and halfway through the fight he just starts meditating for no reason, so weird. And we also find out that Worf is a mysterious handler at Starfleet security, and I thought, is it going to be Section 31? Is it going to be Bashir? No, it gets revealed at the end, but we'll get to that in a minute. So Raffi wants to go into the Daystrom Institute to find out exactly what was stolen, but they get refused permission by Worf's handler. So Worf then decides to go after the Ferengi's accomplice from a few weeks ago, so let's look at this a second. So they want to go to Daystrom, but they're denied. Then Worf decides the information they need is on the planet that they're already on. So they didn't need to go to Daystrom in the first place. They can just pop back to the set that they've used for the last 3 weeks, which is what they do. It turns out that they run District 6 now because they cut the Ferengi's head off, and then Worf randomly meditates again. And yeah, I'm not liking these changes here if I'm being honest. 12 Monkeys alum Kirk Acevedo shows up, and he's the new villain this week who's not the most Vulcan of Vulcans, but I really like this. And I like the reason he explains why a Vulcan would be a criminal, and it works breaking the whole logic trope that Vulcans have always been in Star Trek apart from Cybok. They're pretty one-dimensional and they need to change that, and I'm glad that they've done it in this episode, at least for a few minutes. But the whole Worf and Raffi thing feels very Anakin and Obi-Wan. I know I mentioned Yoda a minute ago, but come on, how can this not remind you of Anakin and Obi-Wan? And they need to fight to the death. So see, I mentioned the fighting would show back up, and Raffi stabs Worf. And they do a kind of fake out death thing with Worf, but you know, it is a fake out because we've seen the trailer, so we know that he lives. So just try not to think about it too much. And Worf, turns out, can now fake his life signs that he's dead, so yeah, he is 100% Jedi. We do get a bit more information on the Daystrom Institute and find out it's guarded by an AI system. So is that lore? Or even data? They keep mentioning the AI system this week, so I've got a few theories on that, but I think we're getting into a Daystrom Ocean's 11 scenario next week. But anyway, back on board the Titan, we get a changeling autopsy, and even Beverly mentioned it's odd that this one is still in a solid, not a liquid form. And we find out that the changeling is different because they're now more solid inside. They can replicate blood vessels and basically all our innards. So they are the Thing from, well, The Thing. But yeah, so this is how they explain how they can pass all the tests. And it does mean that Ro is probably a changeling because she'd done the whole blood thing earlier on in the episode, and she's certainly gunning for Picard. And when she takes him to the holodeck at gunpoint, you pretty much think that's it. But I did like the bit when he deactivated the safeties, like it was a little panic button under the bar. I thought that was a nice touch. As they get into the holodeck, the back and forth here between them is great. Obviously, Ro's not a changeling, and we get a really unique perspective here from someone who worked under Picard but doesn't have such a rosy view of him. And this is great. It's everything that I wanted that I didn't know that they could deliver with the character of Ro. I didn't think they would ever bring her back, let alone deliver it in this way. But if she's not a changeling, who is, and why does she want Jack Crusher? Well, we find out that Starfleet is compromised, but given the fact there's been a changeling on board one of their ships already, I guess that was already known. But Ro lets us know it's at the highest level, and she thinks it's going to be linked to Frontier Day, as that's when the entire fleet is going to be there. But anyway, Picard wants to go to Janeway, so is she coming back? I mean, is they going to pull a Janeway out of their hat? But yeah, after this great head-to-head between these characters, Ro tells him to take the Titan and run, as no one can be trusted. So I guess they're going to be fugitives from Starfleet now as well. And of course, Shaw, who's now got command of the ship back, isn't on board with this, so I wonder how they're going to deal with it going forward. Are they going to lock him up? Is he going to be a bit of a troublemaker or a thorn in their sides? We're going to have to wait and see. But anyway, Ro has to go back to the Titan, so she takes her shuttle, and it gets sabotaged on the way because the Starfleet security officers with her are changelings, of course. And this is where the episode fell off a little bit here, because they never explained the reason that she took a shuttle and not a transporter in the first place. I mean, the last time that we've seen her in TNG was in a shuttle, so was it a callback to that? Or was this all set up so she could sacrifice herself and ram the Intrepid to let the Titan get away? I don't know how I feel about this. It's the same as Riker last week, that there was some absolutely solid character moments followed by then a bit of poor logic and writing. And while it was great to see Ro and the sacrifice was great, and again it looked great, I don't know, it just felt a little bit flat for me. So there's more changelings on board the Titan because that's where they transport to, but not for long. They try to get their hands on Jack, and then Jack gets his hands on them John Wick style. Or whatever Jack is, he's exceptionally strong and fast and kills 4 changelings in a matter of seconds. Visions, and his mother mentions that he's had nightmares as a child, but he doesn't remember them, so that's probably going to be a callback later on. But we get a lot of Jack, but no answers, and I don't think we get enough of the visions to really take a solid guess on where this is going. Anyway, with the Intrepid crippled, the Titan does the Chekhov escape from Star Trek V, and Rose left Picard and Riker some clues about where they can go and what they've got to look for, when the investigation gets interrupted by a call from Worf. So it was Ro that was Worf's handler all along, so now it's all connected. So it all ties in. We've only got LaForge and Troy to go. So that was a lot to take in this week. We got a few explanations about last week's questions. The whole Titan's on the run, being chased by everyone, anyone could be a changeling, and Jack's mystery just keeps getting deeper. And this, for me, like I said at the start of the video, is my favourite episode of Picard. It gave us a lot of information, a little bit of action, some great tense moments, some fantastic character moments, and yeah, a few dodgy moments, but hey, it's still pretty good compared to anything in Star Trek Picard Season 1 or Season 2. The Worf and Raffi bits were the weakest for me though when it comes to the overall story, and it's going to be interesting to see if that changes once they meet up with the rest of the gang. Now, this is just a quick review and breakdown of the video. I'm going to be doing more of my theory videos on this episode, so if you want to make sure you don't miss them, make sure you subscribe to the channel, and if you've made it this far, leave a like on the video. And I want to hear your thoughts and theories below, mainly about Jack Crusher and his visions, so what's going on there, let me know. If you don't want to leave a comment, you can follow me on Twitter @TheGeeksReviews. My name's Al, as always, thanks for watching.